All right. Colleagues, I would like to welcome you to today's seminar. We have a guest who will be speaking to us this evening. So we are very much excited for this seminar today, and I hope you are ready. So welcome and sit tight. We know today is Sunday, so many people are coming back home and they'll be joining us. But I think we have a good number of persons here, and so we would like to start so that we can really have some time to look at the topic of today. So welcome from wherever you're joining. I am the convener of this program. My name is Bright Wano. I'm a professor of respiratory diseases and allergology at the University of Gothenburg here in Sweden, and the founder of the African Science Frontiers Initiative. All right, I will just make a few remarks, introduce the session of today, introduce our speaker, and then we'll hear him. Okay. All right, so it's an important topic we are looking at today. And I have to say that we have mentioned this several times in the past, that we have dedicated the first 6 months of this year to look at fundamental issues in research collaboration. And then we promised that from this month onward, we'll be bringing colleagues from different places within Africa and outside Africa to share their experiences from different perspectives. So we have the privilege today to hear from the Pan-African perspective from our own Professor Willie. So I will introduce him appropriately, but I would like to just mention a few things as usual. Our theme for this year has been from collaboration to impact. Collaboration to impact. So engaging in collaboration, research collaboration that brings expected impact. So yeah, that is our theme. We are working this year, focusing on that during our monthly seminar series. But we also have another program that goes on. It's a bi-monthly program, Prof. Wano's Academic Career Talks 101. And then we have been having this since January. We just had the 4th edition on Friday. And I believe that many of you have been joining us in this. Following the workshop, which comes the last Friday of each month, we have what we call career audit consultation time, where we have 2 hours open door to discuss together and hear your questions, and then of course get feedback on what we have discussed during the workshop. So the next career audit would have been next week, Friday, on the 1st, but we have moved it to the 8th of August because next week we'll be quite busy with our data analysis course that is taking whole days, whole of next week. So please join us on the 8th of August to look at the fourth edition of the career update. These are list of the courses we are dealing with this year. Yeah, we have had 3 of them have gone now. We'll be having the data analysis course this week, and the advert for the research funding and grant writing has gone out, and I hope that you can take advantage of that. For those who want to develop their skills in acquiring grants, I think this is a very good opportunity for you in that. Okay, so one of the unique things about the seminars we are having this year is that, compared to previous years we have usually invited speakers to speak on assigned topics. But this year, because we are looking at things that are very practical, issues of collaboration, and we wanted to practice that. What we have done is that we have tried to make it also quite practical. And what we have done in that is that we have established what we call collaborative research groups, CRGs, where we provide opportunity for colleagues to come together, establish collaboration in the beginning of the year, build their collaborative groups, work together, and whatsoever they want to work together, but in collaboration, and take a journey through to the end of the year. Okay? So we had 12 groups, and each of these groups have been working together. We have been taking assessment of the groups. We have a bi-monthly survey we undertake to see how the groups are developing and what is happening within each collaborative research group. So things are going on there, and I believe that you are happy the way your group is developing. And so during the seminars like this, after the talk, we will give around 45 minutes to the collaborative research groups to meet together and then make progress with their project. So we are going to do that as well today. Okay, so the goal of the CROGs is to build and nurture a fruitful multidisciplinary collaborative team throughout the year. So the first expectation or the first outcome we want is for you to build and nurture a collaborative team. And the second one is that, of course, you have to undertake a project within your collaborative research group. All right? So we see what projects you are able to do and to deliver at the end of the year. Okay? So yeah, as I mentioned, from this month until the end of the year, we are bringing colleagues to tell us about their experiences when it comes to collaboration. We have Prof. Willie today, who will be talking about research collaboration from the Pan-African perspective, his personal reflections. Next month, we'll be inviting Dr. Lena Bergman, who will be looking at the North-South. He has been working so much between Sweden and South Africa. She will share her experience with regards to that. And then we'll have Dr. Mahmoud Maena, who just moved from the UK to establish a stem cell biobank in northern Nigeria. collaborating with governments and different stakeholders. We invite him in September to tell us about that journey, his motivation, why he has to leave, and what he's doing, and how he's navigating through that. And in October, we'll have Professor Babalola, who with her experience she has developed in different sectors, to let us know the pain and the gain he has derived from research collaboration. So please, I hope that you will not plan to miss any of this. November is our conference and boot camp. So most likely we will not have the seminar that month, but we'll come back to you on what happens in December. But now we have secured these speakers who have agreed to come on board to talk to us. Okay, so I will introduce Prof. Willie. This is not the first time he's coming on board. He has always answered us when we call on him. And that is fantastic. So Prof. Willie, we appreciate that. We'll keep on reaching out to you as we need you to come on board. So today he'll be sharing his personal reflections on research collaboration from a Pan-African perspective. I'll just mention a few things about him. He's a young professor. Prof. Willie is a young professor. In fact, he's the youngest inaugurated full professor at the University of Hare. So in South Africa. So he's a professor within the Department of Business Management at that university. In 2021, he served as the co-chair of the South African Young Academy of Science. And then he's a National Research Foundation Rated Researcher, C2, and a fellow of the African Academy of Science. So if you know, the African Academy of Science is a very prestigious place to get entrance. So we are happy that at this young age, Prof. Willie has been able to make these very important strides in his career development. His research is in the areas of human and organizational capability development and how this contributes towards societal development. Research focuses also in, and it's located within the field of psychology and applied management. He explores the role of socioeconomic status within human and organizational capability, development, and outcomes. He has contributed to theory, to policy, and practitioner press, making a meaningful contribution in these areas. He is a recipient of several research funding that have aided his research, including from the National Research Foundation, from the South African Medical Research Council, from the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, from the National Institute for the Humanities and Social Sciences, from the Council for Development of Social Science Research in Africa, from Health and Welfare Sector Education and Training Authority, and from several other sources that I can't mention all of them, but it is very impressive of the success Prof. Willie has made. Prof. Willie collaborates widely across Africa and is a strong promoter of Pan-African research collaboration that should go towards achieving African-based developmental solution. So it is from that perspective that he will be speaking to us this evening. So I am so happy to welcome him, Prof. Willie. Thank you for joining us today. The floor is yours, and I invite you to make your presentation. Colleagues, let's give him our maximal attention as he speaks to us. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you for this wonderful opportunity to be part of yet another workshop of this nature. I don't make of less value this invitation because when it came through, I jumped at the opportunity because it's really a great opportunity to talk to different people and also share experiences of all the things that we are going through as researchers in our different spheres and walks of life. So I'm grateful for that opportunity, and I will talk to you from my personal reflection, which is what I was told to do. And I hope it will resonate with some of you who are going through some of these challenges and opportunities that come with collaborative work. I want to also say, Prof. Bright, I saw someone join in the meeting. My twin brother is here. So if I stumble a bit in terms of my speaking, just know it's the nerves speaking because my twin brother is joining in from the
Yeah,
UK.
yeah.
So I'm
Okay.
I'm hoping that everything will go well. And I also noticed one of our collaborators who's been instrumental in the work that we've done, Professor Madichi, who I will acknowledge a little bit later on as I share the experiences of what I'm going to talk about. I just want a confirmation, Prof. Bright, my presentation is clear for everybody to see on the screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect,
Okay.
perfect. Okay, so let's start about how I got involved in research collaborations on from a Pan-Africanist perspective. And for you to get a bit of the story, you must understand a little bit of the journey I have taken. In 2007, at the height of what was happening in South Africa at that time, there were no opportunities for me, and I thought purely because I was not South African, I was a Zimbabwean. And so I decided, let me find opportunities elsewhere in terms of how I can better myself. I just finished a master's in industrial psychology. And the next opportunity that happened was took me to Dublin, Ireland, where I was to study for a PhD there. But first I had to go through another MPhil and then do a conversion thereafter. And while in Ireland, I got exposed a lot to the African community that was there, particularly with interest in the Africans who were studying at the same university I was studying. And it was a very good network of resources in terms of people's experiences. And to this day, I've got profound respect for the colleagues from Ghana and Nigeria who I met and Egypt who I met at at this university. Subsequently, things didn't go to plan. So I couldn't do the conversion from the MPhil to the PhD. So I had to then make another detour. And this time it took me just across the ocean into the UK, where I was based at the Open University Business School. And in this time, it was a straight enrollment into a PhD program. And again, I met more Africans, scholars who were there at that university who were welcoming and assisting. In fact, one of the stereotypes I remember after working so hard in developing my proposal, one of my supervisors said to me, "You've worked so hard. And we think that you should use a little bit of the money you've got from your research account and go to Africa and do some research. And with respect, I mean, that's the general connotation of go to Africa and do some research. Like Africa is this one little place where we all know each other. And again, that's another stereotype. Somebody would then say, I've got my friend Coffee from Ghana. Do you know him by any chance? And so this is the part where you pull out the map and then you say, okay, so this is Africa. There is West Africa, there is East Africa, Southern Africa, there is North Africa. So Ghana is here, Zimbabwe is here. So the chances of me knowing this person, but it's the thought that count. And this is the work I'm going to also try and emphasize upon the value of partnerships as a way of educating each other about our differences and our similarities. So in all of this journey, this journey that I've painted so far, I then come back to where it started in 2007, back in South Africa as a lecturer and rose through the ranks, and then needed ways of defining myself because as a young academic, and it's still a challenge young academics face and early career scholars face, there's this idea of not being taken seriously. And so I decided to say, well, let me do something that others are not doing. Um, and a lot of the people were looking to the West for partnerships. So you would have people talking about SASOF grants, talking about value in working with the guys in Nordic countries, Australia, and I don't see any problem with that. But I noticed that my university's motto read something around together in excellence to be a leading African university. What type of an African university would we be if we are not collaborating with African scholars? I then went to the international office and then I asked them to say, I would like to find out which partnerships do we have on the African continent as a university. And so that list was so narrow. But the list of partnerships with overseas universities was growing at that particular time. And so I say to myself, if in any way I'm going to survive in academia and path out a way for myself, let me use this angle of African partnerships. And so luck would have it be that I happened to be at a conference in Tanzania, White Sands, and I met Dr. Annette Mnyimba, who's from Makerere University Business School. And I value the contribution that Annette played because Annette was one of those people I met over dinner and we were talking. And she had studied in South Africa for a PhD at Wits. And so she said to me, listen, would like you to come to visit Uganda. And so one visit in Uganda led to the other, and then got partnerships going, funding going. And this is where we are now as I get into the presentation to now show you some of these lessons and journeys that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to make the presentation available to Prof. Bright. One of the things I love about the work I do, I not only love publishing, like we all do, but I also love writing and disseminating the work that we are doing for non-academic audiences, in this case, for places like newspapers. So we've got quite a rich profile of stuff that has been written around the work that we are doing. Particularly University World News, Independent Online in South Africa. And that could summarize the work that we're doing. But I want to leave with you with 7 pointers. And these 7 pointers, I'm not going to link with theory and references. I'm just going to talk about things that I have learned and why I continue to prioritize Africa to Africa partnerships. And this is just a standpoint I've made as a scholar. And the take home for you is whatever you are wanting to do in academia, in research, in teaching, or in any career path of your own, you could take some of these pointers. And I think the passion and the drive that is rooted and embedded in these pointers really is what keeps me going and looking for more opportunities. So let's start with the first one. And I'll put a little picture to just tell the story of some of the things that we've learned. So I think partnerships, particularly Pan-African partnerships, are really an entering word for disruption. And I talk about disruption here politely and maybe a little bit on the violent side of things. And I'll try to illustrate both points. I think we all affirm the challenges that exist between the global north and the global south. We all affirm of challenges. Sometimes when you sit in an early career scholars convention, you are told of things like challenges of publishing, challenges of accessing funding. I've got some colleagues who are attending the Academy of Management in Denmark right now, who are sharing experiences of the underrepresentation and the muting, if you like, of the African voice in discourses about Africa. And it was this one particular poster that has got everybody so interested, particularly because this poster has got all these editors from the global north who are talking and telling us about how to write and research about Africa. And a lot of the Africans in the on that continent and in the diaspora have come out to say this is not right. We are our own African editors to be able to do that. And not because they are not there, but somebody deliberately thought that no, this is the panel that we need to talk to this particular issue. And misguided as it may appear, at least to me, it also raises this necessity for disruption. So disruption for me simply means that you are not going to sit comfortably and enjoy the benefits of being an academic if you're not willing to challenge yourself in terms of the context around you. I'll talk about it in terms of age, where I was wanting to advance, but I met all sorts of resistance of why I can't advance because I'm too young. Okay. You need to get more experience. And here you are, you're publishing in leading journals, but somebody still thinks that you're too young. So, one of the ways we need to disrupt also is around the thinking of colonization in uh, what I believe a divided Africa. I sometimes sit and marvel at this and how it's playing out here in South Africa, for instance, where people go to a hospital and say, we are not going to allow foreign nationals to use this hospital. Foreign nationals go and use the public hospital. And there's a big debate also about access, opportunity, also about migration, which is a topical global issue. So, what we need to be doing is thinking of pushing, and pushing. And how we can only push is when we find a common ground to work together. And I think for the call for me for African scholars, including friends in the diaspora, is to realize and thinking intentionally about what disruption can look like and how it looks like. And for me, disruption simply means that if I want to make it into a certain journal, and I know that alone, it would take me more time to be able to make it into that journal. But if I can mobilize Professor Madici, if I can mobilize Robert Hinson, if I can mobilize someone from different places to say, guys, let's write together and let's work together to be able to get into this space. That's the type of disruption that we're talking about. It's about making yourself vulnerable. It's about availing yourself to the cause of seeing the value in working together to be able to cause this disruption. In 2022, I had the privilege of visiting the Great Zimbabwe Ruins, and this was our tour guide during that visit. And at that particular time, it was quite fascinating how the explanation of oral history and tradition was being done. But this guy chose to actually market himself for the first couple of years at that stage to say, I know a lot about what's happening here, but I just want to avail myself first in a voluntary capacity. Right now, if you go to the Great Zimbabwe Ruins, he's probably one of the best tour guides who will be able to explain to you about the history of that particular place. And that's the disruption that I'm talking about, where you avail yourself to make yourself vulnerable, but to be able to make that impact that you want people to be able to know you for. Number two, for me, Pan-African partnerships are a catalyst for innovation. And I think I say this excitedly because we are a living embodiment of some of that innovation, particularly in the coming together of these different universities. A couple of years ago, the University of Fort Hare, through a partnership we had with Makerere University, decided to work with other universities, particularly the University of Kigali and Gonda University in Ethiopia. What we basically wanted in our MOU was to create a space through which we can promote knowledge and aspects of innovation, particularly pushing the agenda for us as Africans. Now, I say that because it became small at first, but as we started growing, we just started seeing some benefits, which I could talk about a little bit later on. But the coming together of those universities made me appreciate the differences as part of the systems that we exist in. Like I'll be very honest with you. Um, in as much as there's a global challenge on funding amongst these universities, we in South Africa are probably well funded in terms of our innovation ecosystem. So one of the things that colleagues marveled at when I was talking to them to say, I've got a research account. What are you able to do with that research account? And I would tell them what I'm able to do with that research account. To some of our colleagues, it was unheard of having a research account. To some of our colleagues, the idea of going to a conference was had to basically go through different hurdles. A dean had to approve and a VC had to approve, and if the funding was there. So one of the things then we started doing and hoping to achieve even more is to try and find joint collaborative grant funding opportunities that then allow for mobility. And I'll talk about mobility a little bit later on. But it made me appreciate that in the little corner office I've got, I am probably one of the most privileged academics on the African continent to be able to work in an ecosystem that encourages a level of room, even though it is probably um, um, at the end of the market in terms of my own university compared to the other universities in the country. So what this has done, it has made me also appreciate how innovation also emerges out of different conditions. I will say this, and I say this respectfully to some of my colleagues at my university to say, um, I'm impressed by how colleagues at universities like Makerere University Business School work with the little that they have and what they're able to produce. I'm then asking myself to say, this then calls for really a radical thinking and a mindset shift amongst us as Africans to say, how do we leverage opportunities to be able to benefit each other for the common good? So what we need to be doing is bringing together these ideas and see how they can trickle into benefits for Africans through the university. So for me, innovation not only stems from the right mindset, but also it's about making sure that we are making use of the little that we have, even sharing that so that we achieve more. And this is a concept that is unheard of in some universities because I remember when we started with some of these partnerships, some senior people would tell us that, why are you so much interested in working with African universities? They are poor. Why don't you go and work with universities in Europe, in Asia, in Australia, in the Americas? Why would you go and work with an African university that is struggling and where we are not going to benefit anything? And I think that's part of the mindset shift that perhaps maybe what we are prioritizing is what we can benefit in terms of monetary gain, and we lose value to what we can benefit in terms of the output, which is innovation and how that can manifest. Number three, the Pan-African partnerships are all about taking pride in the uniqueness of the African idea. I've stolen this word African idea from a song by Johnny Clegg and Juluka, which is called Scatterlings of Africa. And in that song, Johnny Clegg and Juluka talk about the African idea. I've written an article about that, about what I called the neutering of the African idea. You can read about it. But this idea of the neutering of the African idea is really coming about due to Africans working in closets, not wanting to work with others. And partnerships for me have reminded us of our collective identity and the necessity for us as to be responsive to the challenges from Cape to Cairo. In this picture alone, I can tell you we've got colleagues from South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, who are all together and who have been part of this journey that we have been taking in terms of working towards this responsiveness to challenges. And I think the responsiveness to challenges is from Cape to Cairo. And there's no better place where this African idea should be promoted than on the African continent. And I really would like to appeal to colleagues to think creatively about how really we can unite force as a force to try and address the neutering of these African ideas. It's a pity that, and I say this respectfully, that a lot of my colleagues run. There is a new concept called academic tourism these days, where people are excited to go to conferences in Bali, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, you name all these, Honolulu, in the name of conferences. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but the idea also for me is let's be equally responsive and look for opportunities within those countries who are close to us. And I think that's an important point, really, in promoting Pan-African partnerships. Pan-African partnerships are about setting the agenda for Africa's prosperity. And I think for us, at the core of these partnerships has been the idea of collaboration, research collaboration. So what we've done is we've united with different colleagues in different universities, and we've decided to find common ideas. I'll give you an example. We working on research on decent work, and it's a great opportunity to do a comparative study on decent working conditions amongst academics in Uganda and in South Africa as a cross-case comparison. And part of that has been very insightful in the sense of understanding not just the differences that exist in our countries, but also similarities that we can borrow from. Part of it is also about collaborative teaching, where we invite a professor from Uganda to take an online class with our master's students, which we've done before, and with great results because it really helps the students to have a different voice talking to them about issues that affect them. And I think one pet project I'm really trying to push into, Prof. Madici and colleagues would attest to this, is around the issue of case-based teaching. Case-based teaching. I had the privilege of studying in the UK and going on board Richard Branson's Virgin train, which would take me from where I was staying in Milton Keynes to London within a space of 30 minutes. So 40 minutes we're there. But I have a problem when I stand in front of my students in a rural community in rural South Africa in the Eastern Cape. And I'm talking to them about how Richard Branson built his empire when these kids have little or no understanding who Richard Branson is. But there are entrepreneurs who are around them, who they can relate to, who they have seen and they have felt, and whose work they have seen. And the onus is really on me to try and make sure that there's a safe passageway, that the works of those entrepreneurs or the experiences of those entrepreneurs are making it into my classroom. So Africa to Africa partnerships for me also attest to the continued history of working together. I mean, intellectuals and social activists like the late Kenyan-born thinker Alu Mazuri espoused this about the necessity to work together as Africans, and especially intellectuals in developing Africa's prosperity. Despite challenges on the African continent, really our clarion call is Africans can rescript their destiny. And the rescripting of destiny should be one that we also, just like how colonization happened, we should also allow for time to take its course. And I often hear people who are so pessimistic about the development of Africa, particularly in view of all the many things that are happening, that they don't see value in what is happening. So partnerships are a way of emboldening and making haste our steps towards the liberations of Africans. And I think it's a good common understanding and the coming together to be able to set that particular agenda. For me, also, partnerships have been about mobility. The crucial aspect of mobility needs to be there. One of the most exciting things about the partnership that we have with Makerere is in 2023, their former guild president, the SRC president, came to visit us at the university. And it was a wonderful thing because this was a visit by a student to come as part of the partnerships. And what we did really now from that experience, we've now allowed for a passageway where we allow for students to enroll for our PhD programs. We've started with two so far, two staff members at Makerere University who are being supervised at my university. And part of it is to grow that network, to actually getting more of our students also finding interest in what they can pick in terms of what they can do in the on the other side. I think I will tell you of a challenge. One of the things we had to negotiate with management. So tickets to Kampala, from Kampala to East London in South Africa would cost these colleagues almost between 15,000 Rand. And these colleagues don't have a research account. So they are paying from their own pockets. And so what we did to the university management is part of the partnership. So remember the first point, the partnership is an entering wage. Sat with the research manager and director and said, we would like our colleagues to come for 1 week to visit us, but we would like to appeal to the university to meet the costs of these colleagues' accommodation and meals for that stay. And because of the existence of an MOU, it allowed for a passageway through which this can happen. So these partnerships need to be properly documented, and they are scripted and everybody knows about them, as a way of also then legitimizing even requests for assistance as they may come. So we allow for students and early career scholars to be able to travel. And we are seeing also from our side, some of our staff members showing interest and visiting some of these countries. A month from now, I'll be in Kigali for a week as part of the partnership that we have with the University of Kigali. And this is also exciting. So the activities of mobility must be there. And in the joint collaborative grants that we are applying for, we are allowing for that because I think it's a crucial feature of the partnership to be able to allow people to be able to travel. Partnerships also can be around a common project, and I say little is much here. So just after COVID, or in the middle of COVID, one of our funders here in South Africa, the National Institute for the Humanities and Social Sciences, put out a call to say book projects. If people are interested in applying for book projects, we're excited. We would like to fund them. Tell us of the ideas. And so my colleague and I, Professor Philani Moyo, we're members of the South African Young Academy of Science. And then we then said, let's unite together on a common project. And the common project here was, because it was COVID time, we first initially wanted to write about COVID. And then by the time the grant had been advertised and the call had been put out and we put in our application, we noticed there was a changing nature and the landscape that was happening. So we needed to keep up. So what we then said to Professor Moy, with my colleague Professor Moy, we then said, let's rather invite young scholars in South Africa, on the African continent, and in the diaspora to reflect around what we would call future pandemic preparedness. What would science look like? What have we learned from COVID? How do we prepare for the next COVID? What role do young scientists play? And we received an overwhelming number of abstracts for the book project. And so the final product, which is available for download, is an open access book, by the way, which is another thing we can talk about on another day, how some of our work, we are not accessing it because of paywalls, people asking us to pay. So we made it very clear to the funder that we would like the book to be available as open access. So we had over 25 scholars from Africa, South Africa, the diaspora contributing towards this book. And this was an exciting project which attests to the value of Pan-African partnerships. And the reflections are really a testament, at least for me, to show how easy it is, and I put easy in quotations here, to bring together like-minded people around a common task. But it also attests to also some of the difficulties that are part of the projects of this nature, issues of funding. But we made it very clear that we wanted each of our contributors not to pay any costs. So if it were costs of language editing, we would bear the costs of that because of the funding. And it really allowed us to be able to have all these scholars come through and reflect around COVID. And I think it's a great book that we are now writing a recommendation for it to the African Union, so that for future pandemic preparedness we can have some light as African scholars. Then finally, colleagues, Pan-African partnerships are about dancing to the tune and rhythm that we understand. One of my happiest moments it was a visit that we had with Great Zimbabwe University, and we visited one of the places where the Shona people emerged as a group of people and their history. And that is me dancing with my two left feet there, but all the more, it was a great opportunity to also understand what I've called here dancing to the tune and rhythm that we understand. And for me, partnerships have been a great way for African universities to develop this human resource potential that we've got. It's also a great way that we can make that the linkages between these human resources that we have with all other things that we want to achieve, particularly on the continent, a continent with very difficult challenges, but challenges that can be easily be uh, solved together by coming together through partnerships. So for me, the critical role of partnerships become necessary now more than ever. The type of collaborations that we have about mutual benefit. And I say mutual benefit because one of the things you watch out for in partnerships is addressing issues of power dynamics. You do not want to appear as pushing an idea of superiority because maybe you're coming from a university or a country which is more resourced than other. And that's one of the things that we try to get out of the way when we start these partnerships, for people to sit down and plan what it is that we want to achieve. And then a quote that I saw from President Kagame when I visited Rwanda: Africa's story has been written by others. We need to own our problems and solutions and write our story. I believe one way we can do that is through Pan-African partnerships. And before I forget, there's another benefit of Pan-African partnerships: appreciating the food, the beautiful scenery. And just so you think that it's all about food and scenery, you also are publishing collaboratively with others from different countries in achieving the agenda that we want, which is an agenda for a prosperous Africa. Thank you, colleagues, for your time, and I hope this has been insightful to help you also as you navigate through your partnerships. Cheers. Thank you.
Nice, nice, wonderful, nice, wonderful, Prof. For these thoughts you have shared. Yes, there are quite a lot of things, and I think each of these 7 points you have made will require time to go through them. But yeah, I'm really grateful for the thoughts you have shared. You started from making the point of the stereotypes about Africa. I have my daughter. My daughter recently they wanted to have some friends in their rooms. So I said, okay, you have to choose. And I was quite surprising to see one of the frames she liked is written, Africa is not a country. And that came from experience. Okay. Some of our friends say, well, they're traveling to Africa. And that is quite very unclear when you say you're traveling to Africa. And then she will ask, which country are you going to? I'm going to Africa. Well, Africa is not a country. All right. It's quite challenging, but I think it reflects some of the works that we need to do to minimize some of these stereotypes. And then you have mentioned 7 points that we can really undertake to promote Africa, the African spirit, and our ability to do great things. So I'm really grateful for this these thoughts. So I will just make a summary of some of the points you have made, really focusing on the 7 pointers you have mentioned. One is that African partnership is the entering wage for disruption. And I have to say that those who have been with the ASFI network, who have been with us here, you can see that this is really an important issue. Yes, such disruptions can be made and can bring a positive part to what we do as African scientists. The second point is that it's a catalyst for innovation. It's a catalyst for innovation. This is very true, and it says that all hands have to be on deck. If you look at the continent of Africa, we have very similar problems that affect us. And so if we come together, I think we can find solutions that are not only applicable to one country, but can be replicated in different countries to solve our societal problems. Yeah, you mentioned that this also allows us to take pride in the uniqueness of the African idea when we engage in this partnership. It helps to set the agenda for Africa's prosperity and allows for mobility, unite us around a common project. Little is much. I like that quite a lot. And for us here, we just concluded a training in the ASFI on academic supervision. And what happened is that academic supervisors are trained in Africa is something that is strange to many institutions, perhaps to many countries. It's not a common thing. So people just run into it, develop some trials and errors, and then begin to work in it. But I think it's important, given the cultural dynamics and the things that we face, to have a formal setting where supervisors can be trained. So we just finished yesterday, and there were fantastic presentations people made. One idea I shared was that from all these presentations that have looked at academic supervision in Africa, it provides an opportunity for us to develop a book from different dimensions about academic supervision. So this idea that this helps to unite us around a common project, I think is really fantastic, and I like that quite a lot. And finally, you said that Pan-African partnerships helps us to dance to the true rhythm we understand. So thank you, colleagues. I think the Prof has set the setting for discussion, and I know some of you would like to ask a few questions. I'm happy to take a few of those questions. So if you can, raise your hand. If you can raise your hand, let's see how many we can take, and then I will allow Prof to respond to them. Okay, I have Patience here. Patience, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Professor Bright and Professor Willie. Thank you, everyone, for this great opportunity to learn under your tutelage. I am Patience James. I am grateful to be here. And my question is, at first, I must say that this is a timely presentation because a number of conceptual issues raised in the course of this presentation are things that have been bothering me. So my first question to Professor Willie is, as a young or as a researcher in the process of becoming a professional researcher, what do you mean by having a research account? One, and who who can have a research account? And are there, like limiting factors to having a research account? I wanted to know how know more about this so we know if it is something that we can access as students or it's just meant for professionals who are already fully immersed into research work. And then secondly, the other issue I noted is the issue of having building partnership and also funding partnership from one's individual account, which from what you have highlighted in the course of your presentation, shouldn't be the norm. There are many opportunities out there. But the one thing I've observed is whereas these opportunities are out there, the process of accessing these opportunities can be cumbersome, and sometimes one is left to fund partnership ideas with their money. How can a young or an upcoming researcher build partnership and be able to access or get the partners to take responsibility for some of the costs required in meeting the partnership goal? And then, if possible, sir, could you kindly explain what partnership is all about and the key things that we need to uh, bear in mind whilst building partnership, bearing in mind the power dynamics that can emerge along the process? Thank you, sir.
Okay, Prof. Willie, can you respond? And for those who are coming up, I would like you, if you can summarize your question to one, that would be great, for the sake of time. But Prof. Willie, please, the floor.
Very great. Thank you, Prof. So maybe I use the term which is very common in our context, and I'll explain. So in our context, uh, in South Africa and in some universities, researchers are given the privilege of having what we call a research account. The research account is really the place where a researcher can go and get money, and the money gets put into that account or apply for funding, creating that account. And the purpose really is for supporting the work that the researcher does. For instance, to go to a conference, to pay for statistical analysis, language editing, to give students bursaries. So it's a common concept that is used in some universities. However, if you are in a different university, maybe you find out what works there. I think the other thing about this is, and it links to your second question, which is how. I think the idea is always, for me, it's always about starting small. Start small, find a colleague you can work with, unite around a common team, create a team inside your university that approaches another team at another university to say, we would like to work together, and be honest and frank about some of the dynamics that are there, particularly the lack of funding, to say, colleagues, there is no money that we have so far in this particular project. So if we are going to be publishing, we must be, or if we're going to be doing work related to research, we must be finding ways in which we can leverage about what we are starting off with as a way of helping the partnership grow. Your third question was, what is a partnership? To me, a partnership is the coming together of like-minded people in solving a goal. And I've not put money as part of that definition of a partnership, because it makes it seem as if the presence of money makes a partnership. I have seen partnerships work with no funding, but I will equally say to you, I have seen people succeed in the partnerships that they have through funding. And I'll give you a final example. For instance, the British Academy right now has got calls that are open for funding. And for most of these funding opportunities, you'll see they are calling for a UK university, an African university, or a university elsewhere in the world to come together to be part of that. And that, for me, is where the idea of a partnership is. If you can unite yourselves with a common goal of solving a problem, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I think, I will just add to this that the issue of the research account, I think it should be a basic requirement for anyone who works in the university as a researcher. I think that can minimize funding going to personal accounts. So in this part of the world, there's no way else you can do it. Whether you're a student, you get some stipend, the university opens an account for you because the university has to administer those monies. So it's quite routine, and I think in Africa or other places, I think that should become the routine as well, that when you get research money, it becomes the university property. University administers it. So opens an account for you, and then you have to draw from that. In this part of the world, even in your research account, it's not every request you made that is approved, because your head of department or your boss will have to see whether those expenses fall within the specifications of the money you have received. But the basic thing here is that the research account is quite important, and it needs to be a routine. I think it will minimize people using their research money on personally. Okay, I have Samuel Abanigbe. Who's the next person? Please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Prof. And good evening, Professor Willie and colleagues. Thank you for this insight. Though I joined late, but I still grabbed the highlights of the discussion through Prof review. My question is a way to make some clarification as regards collaboration. And with few experiences I've been having recently, I've realized that I might be wrong, though maybe within my network. I realized that sometimes for instance, there is a project I'm working on, which is specifically a funding or a call within Africa and Japan. But I realized that to actually have a clear-cut collaborator from the Asia country, especially from that country, it's becoming a challenge. It's becoming a challenge. And from other people that I've discussed with, and I realized that this issue also comes up even with some other European collaborators. And sometimes when you see some of this call for grants, it could be a joint collaboration with countries like that, like this. So I want to find out from your experience, Prof, that how do you navigate around this kind of issue, where other collaborators from other continents they are feeling not comfortable dealing with some of us in Africa, and of course some of this call come from a kind of a joint discussion or a joint arrangement from these countries. But of course, the scientists or the researchers are not actually willing to collaborate. How do you navigate around this with some experience? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I will be very honest with you as well. I am also struggling. There was a call for Japan-Africa collaboration. We had a fellow university from Zimbabwe that wanted to be part of this, and here in KwaZulu-Natal. But we couldn't find a Japan collaborator from Japan. And I will tell you that we wrote about 10 emails to different people. They never responded.
Yeah.
They never responded. And and it's also true with some of the European countries. A tactics that somebody had told me is when you go to a conference, try and really speak to someone face to face. And I think this is part of the challenge we face with email communication. some of the colleagues in these countries maybe don't, if they don't know you, they won't respond. But I urge you not to give up, and also use other tactics to reaching out to people. And I think one such tactic would be for conferences. When you attend a conference, even an online one, and there's a speaker that you've seen who aligns with that particular area, you can talk to them. But we have struggled with Japan as well. And we hope that we'll have better luck next time. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Prof, for that. Yeah, I think you have made a point, and I have to also add to that. And I think this goes to young African scientists. It is important to understand that ideas are not enough to establish collaboration. Ideas are not enough. There are other things that you have to consider. One is, in the example someone has presented now, track record is crucial. Integrity is crucial. And Prof mentioned it. Do they know you? Who are you actually? And so it is important, if I go back to what Prof Willie mentioned before, start little by little. Sometimes one of the problems you may have is that you want to do big things, but you have not done small things. And it doesn't work in that way. It takes time for people to trust people in this space. And so it's good to start building your foundation. Don't go to the roof to start your roof. Start building foundation. And it's important what we are discussing this evening, Pan-African collaboration. Why don't you start with, look for projects that you can start within your institutions or between institutions, within the same countries or across countries in Africa. So when you send an email, somebody checks your name. Who is this? Okay, and they don't have so much information about you. Rarely would they reply to that email. Or if they reply, they can say, well, I'm not interested. One of the reasons may be your track record. So it's important to really start from somewhere and begin to build your profile. And sooner or later, you begin to see that the way is clear. And as Prof mentioned, you go to conferences, you establish contacts. When you establish contacts like that, don't just start with pushing people. Start little by little as well and build that trust before you can begin to do big things. All right, I have two hands, and then we'll close this and go for the breakout sessions. I have Dumisani, and then I have Namdi after that. Please, Dumisani, go ahead. Is Dumisani here? Yeah, okay.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Willie, for your presentation. It was very much insightful. My question, I think, is twofold. The first question I'm having, I think you also alluded to it, the fact that you'll find that when South Africans approach, for instance, colleagues in Africa, you'll find that they will prefer to collaborate with those with maybe in Europe or US. Like maybe what can that thing be changed? How can this be changed, like this perspective? Maybe by even our institutions, because you'll find that even when it comes to the research or the collaborations which are happening within Africa, or the research or journals which are published in Africa, in other parts of Africa besides South Africa, you'll find that now there is no recognition of such journals and things like that. And also, in terms of this concept of interdisciplinarity, you'll find that some of the colleagues, maybe in our institution, they tend to be stuck in their disciplines, and whereby you'll find that it's difficult for them to move beyond their discipline. How can you suggest maybe a solution to this? Thank you. So that's just two questions that I'm having.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Mpashe. I think on one end, we can't police partnerships. we can't force people to work with other people they don't want, or that is a free choice that people must have. And I think one of the things that we trying to argue for, particularly in a South African context around internationalization, I mean, the definition of internationalization, some think it's about, going overseas, and whereas we in South Africa with the neighbors to Swaziland and Lesotho, that is internationalization. So one of the things that I think is crucial is a mindset shift, for us to just change our mindset around Africa. And we can only do that. Platforms like this, where we are gathering as African scholars and scholars in the diaspora to come together to be able to work towards a common good and common goal. I think also a challenge that also exists, Dr. Hompasha, which I've noticed, is when it's international funders who are trying to pair us with scholars in the global north. And you often hear that you must get scholars from this country, the LMIC countries. And you'll actually see and ask a question, how equal or how fair are these partnerships? And I often hear colleagues who are complaining about, they just feel like they were just used to be on this particular grants with little or no contribution. So my appeal is then to say, we can only do so, and there's a comment in the chat box, partnerships require time to be nurtured, to grow, and then build trust. And I think that's an important emphasis that we need to focus upon. Let's make it work with time, but let's also have a voice. I've been part of a project where, or not part of the project, I got an email inviting me to be part of the project. And it had a scholar from Europe who was bringing together all these other scholars. And from the email alone, it felt as if my role and contribution to this project was just to go and bring in data to inform the wider inter-country study. And the more I started asking questions, even about how meetings are being organized, the more I became very unpopular. And I then made the choice to say, I will not be part of this because I just don't think I am adding any value, because everything seems dictated upon. And I think that's what we're trying to work towards, to say, let's move away from those abusive type of partnerships. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Prof, for that elaborate answer. So it's very important to look before you leap. Don't just jump on every invitation that you receive. Consider it carefully, and particularly when you're building a career, you need to make certain decisions that will be beneficial to you. For the young ones, you can approach senior ones around you to at least get some counsel from them. I have received this offer. What do you think? And they can advise you properly. Okay, I have the last hand here, Professor Nnamdi Madichie. Please, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Prof. Professor Willie, nice to catch up with you again. And I got this invite quite late on LinkedIn, and I'm mentioning LinkedIn deliberately because if you want to break out of your silos and out of your perceived marginalization, you need to reach out. You need to network. You need to make yourself known, and that goes to both Patience and Samuel on the questions they asked. One of the critical things is that you need to be seen. You need to be known. How do you get to be seen or known? You join organizations. There are quite a range of them. The Academy of African Business Development is just one of numerous others. African teamed organizations. Yes, another keyword is the big D, the diaspora networks. The diaspora are from home. So don't be looking at it as a north and south thing. You leverage your brothers and sisters that are in the diaspora. They help you broker that avenue. They give you that required visibility. But then again, don't sit down and expect to get handouts, thinking that you work for it. Hard work actually takes you there. So that's very important. So in terms of partnerships and collaborations, the last point Professor Willie made about the power dynamics and imbalance, surprise, surprise. I was involved in a project that involved the University of Hare. Professor Willie, yes, your university. And IESEG in France. This is an NRF funded research project. NRF/Campus France. So two funding bodies, one in South Africa, one in France. And I was incorporated. I was invited to join, despite the fact that I was not based in any of those two countries. How? Why? Because my work speaks for itself. So it's very important for you to be given a seat at the table. It's something you need to make yourself consequential. So, and if you're just starting off and thinking, okay, I haven't got that track record, and you're on a PhD program, you have supervisors. Look, my big break was afforded me by my own PhD supervisor back in the days, many years ago. So these are very important considerations. We cannot sit down and keep licking your wounds and feeling marginalized and walking away and keeping mute, because that marginalization will continue, and trust me, it becomes self-perpetrated marginalization. So that's all I needed to add. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Prof. I think your point is well made, and we have also emphasized these things. For the young ones, there's a common saying that Rome was not built in a day. If you're developing academic career, it can be slow, really, it can be slow, but it requires patience, it requires persistence, it requires determination, it requires hard work. You need to make these efforts to break through. Don't be in a hurry. You need to have very measured ambition, realistic ambition. You know, when you understand the rules of the game, it will pay off at the right time. Okay? Instead of contacting everybody or contacting many people at the same time, it's good that you take your time to build your profile, build your career, be known, right? Develop a track record. Sooner or later, those partnerships you are chasing will start chasing you. That is the way it works. And I have to say that the African Self Frontiers Initiative, for those who have been with us since we started, or who joined us along the way, you can testify that the topic of today's seminar, Pan-African collaboration, has been emphasized. And I'm happy to hear from people that there's an impact being made on their career. There's an impact being made on understanding, appreciating the African spirit, coming together, collaborating with those in Sudan, Rwanda, Tanzania, South Africa, Nigeria, Cameroon, coming together. I think this is beautiful. If you sometime you want to collaborate outside, at least you can begin to showcase what you have done within the African context. Okay, so Prof. Willie, I have to say thank you again for the opportunity we have had with you this evening. I know you have been on transit, so we wouldn't keep you any longer. Thank you for coming, and as I promised, we will always come back to you to beg your support in what we are doing here. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Prof. Bright, and all the best to the colleagues on the line. Thank you very much.
All right. So, colleagues, I will allow Prof. Willie to leave because of his situation, but we will continue. And Prof. Nnamdi, I have taken note of you. Please don't be surprised when you get an email from me. I think there are things that we can take further from here. So it was great to have you. All right. So the next thing we have to do now is to send you to your breakout sessions. So please stay online. We are going to meet with our collaborative research groups. I will now create the breakout sessions. If you know the CROG group you belong, we have 12 of them. So I'm creating 12 rooms. If you belong to CROG 1, you go to breakout session 1. If you belong to CROG 12, you go to breakout session 12. If you do not have any group, just indicate on the chat box. Yes, Prof Nnamdi, you're permitted. You're permitted to take your leave. Thank you very much for joining us. If you do not have your group, please just indicate here, and we will send you to a group. The only thing is that if you join any group, please, we want you to remain in that group throughout the year. Okay, the groups have activities they are working on. You have to remain in that group throughout the year. All right, so colleagues, let me open this. I think we'll spend only 30 minutes, sorry, 30 minutes, and I will bring you back due to our time has gone. But yeah, let me open the rooms now. You can join your rooms, and then we'll assign those who do not have rooms to rooms. And of course, if you know your group, you can write your group. You can write your group number to your name so that it's easier for us to send you to your group. All right. All right, colleagues, welcome back. I hope you have had the chance to come together again in your groups, and that you are making progress. Several people joined for the first time today. If you want to continue, please look out for who is the coordinator of your group, and let them send your information to, they will guide you to the admin and Dr. Ajibola Oladejo, and then we will include you officially to the group and give you your group ID number. So please, if you want to continue in your group there, if you want to continue the project, so please do that, and come back to us, and then we will give you the necessary information you need. So thank you, everyone, for joining the breakout session. Before we go, I just want to remind you our 8th edition of the seminar series. Last Sunday of August, we will be looking at the North-South perspectives to research collaboration, and we'll be getting the personal reflections of Dr. Lena Bergman. She's a senior obstetrician at Sahlgrenska University Hospital here at the University of Gothenburg. He's also an associate professor here, as well as associate professor at Stellenbosch University in South Africa. So please, I think today's order was good, and I hope you join us for the next edition in August. Yeah, just to remind you also that the 4th edition of the career audit, following our career talks last Friday, the audit will be coming up on the 8th of August. So please join us. It starts at 12 noon and runs to 2 p.m. GMT. If you want to take part in the research funding and grant writing course, it's open for application. And the application, is ending in last week of August. So please register and join us. Yeah, so our annual conference and boot camp, the third edition of it, Beyond Boundaries, and it's still in line with the discussions we are having this year, even as you heard from our speaker this evening. Beyond Boundaries, breaking collaborative frontiers. Breaking collaborative frontiers. Registration is opened. Submission for abstract is opened. We have recruited our keynote speaker, and we're still recruiting the other speakers for the event. Don't be told about it. Make efforts. As you have heard this evening, these are places, platforms where you can begin to grow, nurture your collaboration. Don't wait for the raining days. Start little by little. Get to know people. Get to know your colleagues. And this conference offers you that opportunity. We have had 2 editions that were impactful. I will believe that this year edition will be even much more. So please register and then join us. The abstract submission is open as well. And the projects going on in the collaborative research groups offer opportunities for the collaborative research groups to submit abstract. All right, you can submit abstract with your project to showcase what you have been doing. So please bring it. And then this circular has been sent out, the ASFI 510 program 2026. The goal we have in this program is to reach out to African universities. We want to train 5 scholars from 50 universities in Africa. All right, 5 scholars from 50 universities in Africa. The goal is to create clusters of next generation research champions across African universities who will be empowered, trained, mentored in ASFI courses and programs, who can then go back to the universities and replicate and train others. Is your university interested? Please reach out to them. Ask them to apply. All right? Ask them to apply. We'll be happy to receive applications. We are happy that universities have been submitting the applications. Do not let your university to be left out. All right? You can see the timelines and deadlines for the different stages of the program. It's a full year program next year. We want to support African universities in this way. And one of the things that will come out from this is what we have discussed this evening, forming a Pan-African research champions partnership. All right, this program from the university perspective is only open for those who have never attended ASFI programs. We want fresh hands to also benefit from what we are doing. And finally, the African Science Frontiers Initiative Research Journal is open for paper submission. This is a place you can develop your profile in publication. We have different types of papers we publish here, and we invite you. Please bring your papers on and submit it with us. All right, so thank you, colleagues, for coming this evening. We appreciate your presence, and I wish you a very lovely week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Well, we'll just remove this address and go and check.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.